Hey guys, welcome back to the Witchcraft Shop. So today we're gonna do a little work on the front forks here, my 07 Heritage. So the last time I took a trip to Arkansas on the way back, I kind of noticed a little oil. So I got oil all the way down the bike, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but all over the front fender. And yeah, she's greasy and oily. So we blew the fork seal up here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you how to take the front forks apart, put in all new seals, new bushings, and basically how to rebuild it. It's not that hard of a job. So let's get started. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take a 12-point 10 millimeter, and we're gonna take these two bolts out right here, which connects your brake caliper to the front forks. We're going to take the caliper loose. We're just going to move it out of the way for now. So with those two bolts removed, you're just going to have to wiggle this a little bit. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but we have a little bit of pressure on the brake pads there. There we go. It's loose. And what we're going to do is I'm going to wire it up back here on the case saver bar so it just kind of hangs out of the way, just so it doesn't hit the fender, get in the way while we take the front wheel loose. That'll be the next thing. We're going to take this nut loose, and we're going to loosen the pinch bolt on the other side, and we're going to take the axle out. Alright, so we have the caliper wired back out of the way so we don't hit the fender, scuff the paint. We have a 1/2 inch drive with a 15/16 on the nut. And while we take that loose, we're going to hold it in place. Pry bar fits right in that little hole, keep the axle from turning. We're going to take this nut loose, and then we're going to take these pinch bolts loose that pinches the axle shaft. And we're going to pull the axle shaft out of the way. Alright, nuts removed on that side. Pinch bolts are loose. We can put our pry bar in here. We can kind of twist the axle while we pull it out. Keep in mind, you're going to have spacers on both sides. You don't want to get those mixed up. They got to go back the same way they came back, on the same side as they came out of. Alright. Tire and axle's been removed. What I'm going to do next is take these two bolts loose. There's two nuts on the back side, holds the front fender on. What I'm going to do is leave it attached to the other side so the fender stays in place. Since this one's got a light, I don't want to have to undo the wiring and everything. If it was just a plain front fender, I'd probably take the whole fender off, but what we're going to do is just do one fork tube at a time, and then the way the other one can hold the fender in place. Alright, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but up under here, on the bottom of our triple tree, way up under there, that's our pinch bolt. What that bolt does is it squeezes the two halves together to pinch around the fork tube. So we're not going to take it out, but we're going to loosen it enough to where we can slide the fork tube down and out. Alright, now on the top side, right here, I'm going to take 1 3/8 on this sucker here. I'm going to remove this cap right here. Alright, got this loose. There's a washer, and then there's a rubber bushing that sits in there. We're just going to take that off and set that off to the side. Now, it's usually a booger, and it's going to take a little bit of finagling to do, but we're going to grab our fork lower and we're going to try and pull the whole fork tube out. And I tell you what, I'm going to cut it here so I can use both hands so I don't mess up this fender. There we have it. The whole fork tube, the whole front fork assembly slides right out of there. This is where our lower part of the triple tree, we had our pinch bolt up under there, and up on top is where we had our nut that we just took off. So let's go to the bench and see about disassembling this. All right, so here we have our front fork tube assembly. I like to take a old inner tube, wrap it around the fork tube several times, clamp it in the vise. This is how it sits on the bike. We are going to take the nuts and washers off. And if you notice on this, it tells you which side goes outside. So when you put it back together, make sure you get it on the right end. Now what we're going to do is right here, we're going to take a 6mm hex key and we're going to take this bolt out. All right, so after we get our little bolt out of the end of the forks, that disconnects the shock assembly from the lower, and it'll move up and down. Put a catch pan underneath to catch the oil because it's going to leak. Next thing we want to do is go up here where the two meet. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but there are little spots right here. Here we go, where you can catch this clip. Doing. There we go. And we want to take that clip off. Once you have your clip off, with the upper mounted in the vise and a little ways off the floor, we can grab the fork lower and pull the assembly apart. And what it should do is come out with your seal, your washer, and your slider bushing all in one. And down here at the end, this is where our little 6mm Allen head bolt was attached. So let's clean everything up, because usually the insides of these are dirty, and this bike's got 80,000 miles, so it's time to clean everything up. All right, so we spray a little brake clean down in there, kind of get the ook and gook out of there, clean it up some. At the bottom, you're going to find this little critter. This sat on there when it goes down in the fork lower. So clean that up, set that off to the side. What we're going to do next is on our bushings, well, you see there's a slot there. Let's turn the other one. Slot there. And what we're going to do is we're going to wedge a screwdriver into the slot, pry it apart, and pull these off. A little hard to do one-handed while you're on camera. There we go. So there's our bushings, and you can see after 80,000 miles there's some wear on there. We're going to clean this up, pop our fork seal off. Notice when you go to put the new one on, which way you want up and which way you want down. Usually there's letters and numbers on the top side here. That's what goes upward. But anyway, what we've done is we've got our little rebuild kit, which has our sliders, our bushings, our seals, all in one. So let's take that apart, separate all the parts out, and clean everything up, put it back together. All right, so here's all the pieces in our new kit. Here's our new sliders. We'll put them on. We got our new oil seals. Now some of this we ain't going to use. Since we have a Heritage, we're not going to use our rubber boots. But if you had a Dyna or Softail Standard, something like that, you'd want those boots. The rest of these seals, they go on the inside. We'll show you that here in a little bit when we take this nut off to access the inside of it. All right, we're going to take the top nut off. We're going to use a 13/16. We're going to take a shop towel and hold it over the top. You want to hold pressure down. They can be a little tight sometimes. You want to hold pressure down because when this pops off, there is spring pressure, and you don't want that cap flying up and hitting the ceiling. There it is. Not a whole lot, but if you wasn't holding down on it, it'd fly away from you, and you don't want it hitting you in the forehead. Remove your top nut. There's a little seal in there that we're going to replace. Pull our spring out. Set it off to the side. We're going to take our fork tube, turn it upside down, and there's our shock valve assembly. One of the little plastic pieces that we have over here that we're going to replace. We're just going to clean all this up. We're going to clean the inside of the fork tube up, and then we'll get to putting it all back together. All right, got everything apart, cleaned up. We're going to take our shock assembly. This is just a little piece of plastic, and it just pops off, and the new one pops on. Now again, there's extra parts here depending on what bike you're working on, so we're not using everything on this particular one. Here's our top cap to our fork. We're going to take that little rubber washer off there, throw that away. We're going to grab the new one. It just rolls right on. And then our nut that came off the very top of the triple tree, take that little seal off. We're going to put that seal on there. Set that off to the side though, that'll be one of the last things we do. So let's take these pieces. We're going to come up here, take our rebound spring, put it back on our shock valve. That goes in. Take our spring. May have to reach up in here and center it to where it comes all the way through. Now the tricky part. We're going to take our top bolt. We're going to grab a rag or a leather glove or something here. Grab our 13/16. We're going to try and push this down and get the thread started. It is tricky to do. Sometimes I actually have to get a press, and I have a jig made for doing this because some of them have enough spring pressure I just can't do it by hand. Right now I'm trying to be in a hurry and do it without, but I'm telling you it can be a bugger. Nope. All right, so here's how poor folk improvise. So we got our upper fork tube. We're going to take a piece of 1.5 PVC, common plumbing pipe, it's cheap. We put that on there so we're not pushing against the plunger, which would make more spring pressure. We're going to set that on the floor jack. This is simple. Just a piece of pipe. I drilled a hole, I ran a bolt through, tack welded it on. This way it can't slide out of the way. And we're just going to take the jack, line it up, and we're going to put just a little pressure on it. Make sure the rubber O-ring starts. Pull the jack back to line it up. And then we're going to see if we can't get this thing to screw on here. A little more pressure. I know if you have a touring bike there's a whole lot more spring pressure on these forks. So it gets harder to do these. There we go. I think we caught the threads now. Yes, sir. Let her jack down. Trying to do a video, I got into a hurry and tried to do it by hand. That didn't work, but that improvises and gets us back together. We're going to use our new sliders. Let's put the bigger one on first, then our smaller one. It's just going to snap over. All right, get things out of the way here. We've got our new slider bushings on here. We're going to take just a little bit of fork oil, lube it up just a little bit. Now, remember that little critter came off the end of there. We're going to take our fork lower. We're going to slide that all together. We're going to take our bolt. Make sure you got your little copper crush washer, sealing washer on the end of there. We're going to get that started. We're just going to get it started so it doesn't go anywhere. We'll torque it down here in a bit. Take my piece of rubber inner tube so we don't scar the forks up. Kind of wrap it around there. Come on, get in there. There we go. So we're going to clamp that in place. Hold that while we're working here. Now that upper slider bushing has to get driven down into your fork lower. They make a tool for that. I used a piece of 1.5 inch PVC pipe, split it up the center, warmed it up to where it would fit over the fork tube, and we'll just drive that slider bushing down in there. We'll take our new metal backup ring. We'll give her a couple hits, make sure she's sealed, set down in there. We'll take our new oil ring and flat side up. That's the side usually you'll see the numbers on here, but you want your flat side up, and it's just going to slide on there. And then again, we'll take our little tool and drive that down in there. And if we have it driven in properly, we'll take our little clip, retaining clip, push that down in there, take the tip of a screwdriver, and we're going to make sure that snaps down in that little groove. It's hard to see on the camera, I'm sure, but it snaps in there. Alrighty. So we got our assembly back together. Let's tighten down the nut, and then we will, since it's a 07 Heritage, the book says 13.4 ounces of fork oil. I'll get a funnel and we'll pour it in this top hole up here. That'll fill the oil back up to give us our shock dampening. You can get fork oil in different weights. This is 20 weight. You can get 10, 20, 30 if you want a little firmer ride. We're using 20 weight on this one. But we'll get a funnel, we'll fill it back up, and then we'll get the fork assembly back up in the bike. All right. Get our fork oil in there. Our assembly's back together. And we're gonna just slide it right back up in there the same way it came out. Try not to scuff the fender. Come on, Betsy, get in there. What we have to do is get this upper bolt to come up through there where it needs to be. I may have, there we go. Wasn't holding my mouth right. Once we get that up in place, we take our bolt, come on, get in there. There she goes. Make sure that little rubber O-ring goes down past that metal washer. And I know it's 1 3/8 head with an 1 3/8 wrench, but you do not need to put that much torque on it. This just holds the top in place and seals it. We're going to tighten down our pinch bolt nut that we undid before. Then I'm going to put the fender bolts back in. To hold the fender back to this side. And once I get everything on this side tightened back up, we'll come over here and we'll do the same thing with the left fork. Same way. Okay, left side of the bike, same as the right. We mounted the fender to the right fork that's been reinstalled. We come up underneath here, we loosen our pinch bolt, we come to the top, we take our bolt out the top, slide the hoe unit out the bottom, and we mount it up in the vise. Piece of little rubber inner tube before we clamp the fork lower in the forks. We take our 6mm Allen wrench and we take the bolt out of the end, the oil will drain out. And now here we are at the top, and we've got to find this little clip. Pop that little clip out. We're going to grab the upper and just hammer a few times, and our upper fork assembly comes apart, seal sliders and all. And just like the last time, take everything apart, clean it up.